Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaber.io, and I'm here today with Vanessa Carmones, the CEO of AnyContext. Good afternoon, Vanessa.
Hello, Mark. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. You look like you're nice and comfortable in your living room there.
I am. I'm working from home, as most of us are these days. So,
Well, yeah, yes, I'm at my dining room table. Not quite as comfortable as where you are, but I'll be back on my living room couch pretty soon.
yeah, I figured, you know what? Might as well just welcome you into my home, right?
Yeah, very nice. So to start with, can you share a brief background of your work experience before you started at AnyContext?
Sure. So before I started AnyContext, I ran a PR firm called the Mix Agency for 10 years in San Francisco. And we specialized in working with very early stage technology companies, handling a lot of their communications needs, and most specifically focused on the developer community aspect of it. So we were working with companies that really needed to have their products and services be integrated with developers and engineers, and sort of like a very much focused on the software ecosystem for a very long time, and spanned in data and gaming and mobile, and you name it, we did it. And before that, I was actually in many large PR agencies and in-house communications and marketing and PR roles, like at Cisco. I worked with Pixar. I worked with a lot of big companies, and so I definitely, I would say, earned my stripes
Yeah.
with working at a lot of large companies, small companies, and I just started really focusing on startups at a very young age in the Valley, and stumbled upon it and just really enjoyed it, and have been doing it ever since. So that's what I do now.
Cool. And I know where both of those companies are, you mentioned. So you did a little bit of driving there, didn't you?
I did. And so back when I was started, one of the agencies I worked at in San Francisco, I was living still in the South Bay. And at the time, the 101 and the 280 were nightmares. And, it's been a nice 2 hours up and down the freeway getting home. So
I certainly can relate to that. So what has been your experience with remote employment, both as an employee and now as an employer?
I love it. I mean, I think that, there's a tremendous, I feel like it's gone through different phases over the years. And, some people feel, and managers feel like there has to be so much control in the sense of, the type of work that you're doing and how you are able to collaborate with teams and things like that. But through the work I've done over the years, we started adopting a lot of different types of services and also companies that enabled you to do cross collaboration and build out a lot of your chats, enablements, and just project management tools and things like that we started using very early on with my remote team. And I was traveling a lot when I had my first company, and I had to stay on top of everything when I was in different cities and things like that. So in a way, I was still working remotely because I was still not in the office. And now it's 100% remote, and it's been 100% remote for me for probably the past 8 years.
Oh, wow.
So I did a hybrid of that model when I lived in San Francisco and I was traveling. And then as I, stopped my first company and started my new one, I was like, we're going full remote, and it has been great. And, you just need to have, I think, a really solid type of strategy of how you're going to, train people, right? And how you're going to create a culture still remotely, right? And so we did a lot of that early on and tried a lot of different things. And I think the most important thing is just trusting your team and letting them be just independent and letting them do their thing. And so I've always been that type of manager, and so it worked out well for us, and also the type of work that I do, right? And so I think that it depends on the type of role that you have within a company. So I'm not saying that remote is for everyone. I think there are ways now and tools for engineers to work remotely, but when you're building certain specific type of products, or you really need to be there together to test out algorithms and things like that, like it's important to be together as a team. But that you need to be at the office 7 days a week, 12-hour days, like absolutely not. So.
Well, and your specialty is marketing. So what about marketing people? How does the remote work for them?
For me, I mean, for me, we check in, and because we work with clients, so I'm a services-based company, right? So I have multiple clients, and they don't care where I'm at, but when they need me, I'm there for them. So they text me, they call me, they Slack me, we email, I'm available for them. Honestly, any time of day. I'm very, just integrated with their teams, and that's, I think, the difference, is knowing what to use and how to use it, knowing when to use Slack, knowing when to use email, also letting them know, your availability, and just, I think, always just having an open dialogue and having that communication. We also track things really closely. So on the project management side, it's really clear for me to know like what my design team is doing, what my project management team is doing, my writing team. So it's different people have different responsibilities. And so knowing how to be able to manage that across the organization and across different projects, there's so many amazing tools now to be able to do that. And so I think that for us, that's what's worked. And when we need to meet together or we do offsites, I always have done multiple offsites during a year. So I'll take my teams to, Mexico, we go to Big Sur, we'll go to Tahoe, we go to different places, and, they get an all expense paid trip, and we get to hang out as a team and brainstorm and talk about, issues and things that come up. So I think it's really about the culture that you build. And, my team is pretty small. So I don't have to really worry about having to be big brother and be watching, be a micromanager. I've never been a micromanager. I don't think it works for people who are micromanagers, to be honest with you. You have to really trust your team and train them, take the time to really help them understand. And also if they're feeling weird about working alone or the environment, I've also had memberships at WeWork where I'm like, hey, go to an office. You want to be around people? Here's an office space, So there are ways to build hybrids and give people what they want, depending on the different things that make them happy with their work environment, right? I think it all comes down to creating and customizing that experience for your employees.
Interesting. And the people that go to WeWork, I mean, because they're not really working with, they're working with strangers. So do they eventually say, the heck with it, I'm just going to go home?
Yeah, but they create a beautiful community, right? And so we started doing that in San Francisco. We had an office, and the team would pop in and out when we needed to. So if we had to have a team meeting and everybody needed an all hands and we wanted to see each other, hey, let's go to the office and we'll meet there. Or if we wanted to do a team lunch or things like, or we had a client coming in. So it all depended on the need. But I think, for small business owners and for people like me that, need to be agile and, our business ebbs and flows, we have to be able to, I would say transform with that, right? And be flux and fluid with that, because you lose a couple clients, you're like, I can't afford office space, So I think you just have to be really, smart and creative about, how and when you enable those things, right? And activate those types of things, especially like mobile offices and things like that.
Yes. So let's talk about AnyContext now. What is your base product? Who's your target audience? All those things. How'd you get started?
So, AnyContext came out of a very big client pulling me out of sabbatical. And I was on sabbatical in South America, and I had shut down the mix agency, my first company. I was burned out, and I just had my daughter, and I was a first-time mom. And I was like, I can't have 5 offices, 15 people. Like, I'm done. Like, I don't want this anymore. And it was a really hard choice to make at the time, because we were a relatively, well-known agency, and I'd built this brand, and, it'd been a San Francisco kind of fixture for a very long time. But I was done. And so I said, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. And, I entertained corporate offers. I entertained recruiters, I kind of talked to people. And then I said, I've done ad tech, I know what's happening with, automation. I know what's happening with all these tools and services. We work with so many of them with AI. I'm going to just do my thing again. And I think what I want to offer is something more high end, more involved, and something that I think is going to be the future of how particularly startups and a lot of companies work. And so I built AnyContext with the thought of, hey, I'm going to be your CMO and I'm going to just have a team and we're going to plug into whatever you need and we're going to get you started. Because most startups don't understand the value of marketing, right? And their VCs rack their brains because they need to do marketing, but they don't want to yet afford a person like such as me that costs a lot of money, right? For a long time, you know, they might not be ready. The product might fail. We need to pivot. You know, we got to raise like. So I said, you know what? I can do this in a way that is really effective for the VCs, is effective for the teams, and I don't have to take on a lot of clients, and we can really, you know, from the get-go, you know, like help build the brand, help build the customer experience, you know, help tell the story and build the narrative, and you know, do all of the things that a startup most of the time forgets to do really early, and then they want to launch, and then they launch you know, they launch and they sort of like jack it all up. You know, they're just like, oh, we didn't think of this. And then I used to get called to clean up the messes other agencies used to do when they couldn't launch the client correctly, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people aren't super technical in tech PR, right? And so I just happen to be extremely technical. And so, and I love just, you know, really understanding what's underneath the hood. I really love product. And so I think because I have this hybrid ability to, you know, work with engineers and also work with like marketing and salespeople, it just made a lot of sense for me. And I've been able, you know, to work with some really amazing companies. And the other focus I started really shifting to was also the ethics and the compliance and privacy around what had been built with social, since, you know, my first agency had so much to do with that. I mean, we launched all those products that people are addicted to now. You know, we gamified things and, you know, we talked about virality. And so, I mean, that was one phase of what I did. And so I said, well, you know, I really care about the human aspect of building, you know, software and building companies that really care about their end user and that want to do good with tech. And so that's where Level 11, which is a practice area that I have with AnyContext, was born from. And, you know, I've been working with a few companies since then to really help, you know, build councils and, you know, build consortiums around this and how they think about data and how they think about, you know, the unintended consequence of what technology can do to us, right? And, and the futurism, the futurist of it all, right? Like, what's the future? So that's what I do now, and I absolutely love it. I have a lot of fun doing it.
I assume you've seen The Social Dilemma then, correct?
You know, Tristan Harris is my client.
Oh, okay. Well, then, yes, you have.
So I launched this first company that got sold to Google, Apture.
Ah, okay. So we could have a whole different podcast about all that stuff.
Completely. And actually, I will tell you this, I did not watch it.
Really? But you lived it, right?
That's why. Why do I have to watch it if I lived it? You know, like no need. And most of those people I know and collaborated with at some point in my career. So yeah, so, you know, now I have, you know, I was doing an ethics practice right when Tristan was on the cover of the Atlantic, and I was like, oh my God, great minds, right? Think alike. So yeah, the timing was really interesting. But, you know, I think the work that they're doing, you know, the Humane Institute is really important. I think that, you know, there's a lot more interest in this area. And I think that you know, I think it was really funny. I don't know if you watched Silicon Valley, the show.
I did not.
Okay, so Silicon Valley, the last, you know, I think the last season was all about like ethics, you know, and then they came up with this thing of how they called it tethics, you know, and it was just so funny to me because I was like, oh my God, they're now like literally making fun of my life, you know, like this is like my life with this, with what tech is happening. And I was just really, you know, you have to find humor and that kind of thing. And, but yeah, I absolutely love, you know, being challenged by that. And, you know, I collaborate and work really cllosely with the Mercola Center for Applied Ethics at Stanford University. They really help me shape what we do at AnyContext and with Level 11, and really figuring out the right tool set for companies that are coming to terms and having to think about, you know, what it is that they're doing with their technology and their automation and their software and all their AI, you know?
Well, I think most tech startup, you know, the CEOs, they really don't think of the unintended consequences. They think they're doing something. They think this is going to be a really good for society, and then they don't understand because they don't have bad thoughts. And then people that do have bad thoughts Say, hey, let's do this.
You know, and there's many of them. There's many of them. You know, I don't know if you remember the app Secret that came out in the Valley. So Secret was just a shit show. You know, it was like I looked at that app and I was like, oh my God, it's gonna be such a bad call, you know, and it was, and they shut down because they had so many issues with their community and they couldn't, you know, they couldn't manage the community, you know, and really build guidelines, right? And a way that people engage and how they talk about each other. And, you know, just there was a lot of really bad, ugly things that were said in those threads and that community. And it was just very toxic. And I was really glad when they were gone.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah. Interesting. So to finish with, I'm just going to ask you, I mean, you started a company as a totally remote company, right?
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. So you probably were more prepared than most, but did it cause any surprises or challenges that you didn't expect for you or for your clients?
For my clients, yes.
Mm-hmm.
For my clients, yes. For me, no, not in the sense that, no. Yeah. I mean, really, you know, it was more of working through and, you know, what I ended up doing a lot though, was really making myself available to people and my clients to talk through like how they were feeling, how they were coping, you know, like it became more of a kind of psychological type of thing, you know, where we would talk a little bit about, because for a lot of people, their life shifted so much, you know, you went from, the one thing that I will say that changed for me was that I wasn't on the plane anymore.
Yeah. And
that for me personally was such an amazing relief and such an amazing newfound, like, you know, I was like this discovery I made, like, wow, I actually don't have to be there all the time. I don't have to be on the client side. Like I can still do what I do. And they just see my face on the video and it's fine. You know, I always felt that my presence needed to be there physically all the time when I was working on a big project or, you know, really trying to build strategy with my client. And the reality was that didn't really matter as much. And we adjusted to so many different things. And then of course, having kids at home all day, right? That was the only other thing. But other than that, I mean, I feel like I really enjoyed not having to get on a plane for sure.
Yeah, there's pros and cons to it. I think, but when it's every week, it gets to be a little too much after a while.
It does. And sometimes, you know, for me, even though I stopped the mix agency, right, because I just didn't want to travel so much. I was still going to the Bay Area all the time. Like I was going to the Bay every other week, every 2 weeks. And so, but when you're, you know, I think you excuse it in your head. You're like, oh, it's only a 40-minute flight. You know, I'll be in and out. Yeah, I'll be right back. And it's not always like that. So.
Good. Yes, yeah. I have flown to LA and back in the same day. It's like
me too. I used to do it all the time. So now it's nice to just stay home.
It is a tiring day though. Any day you fly, it's a tiring day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Vanessa, I want to thank you for your time today. This has been very enlightening. I wish AnyContext and Level 11 lots of success. I think that you actually got something really good there.
I hope so. So far, so good. Knock on wood.
I think so. You have it at the right time. So good luck with that. And thank you for your time today.
Of course. Thank you, Mark. Pleasure.
Have a great day.
Okay.